G'day everyone. The Beastmaster archetype in Enshrouded has gained a bit of a reputation as being underwhelming or weak, and so today I've got my Beastmaster build that I actually used on my first playthrough of Enshrouded that is still one of my strongest builds. Whilst the build may read to be underwhelming, with the right build pathing you're really just playing a ranger with only 14 skill points invested to gain the Beastmaster stuff. And don't underestimate these skills anyway. Let me tell you, some of the beasts like the Draconic Vulture in the endgame can do some serious work for you. So if you're after a really fun and strong ranger warrior hybrid with the fantasy elements of the Beastmaster, then this build is for you. So let's dive into it. So starting off with the gameplay style, you'll be primarily playing as an archer with decent melee strength. I'll talk about how to benefit from the Beastmaster skills separately in a moment. When fighting tougher or multiple enemies, you want to abuse your range and mobility from rolls and double jump to whittle down your enemies with powerful ranged attacks. This is definitely where the build is strongest, like any ranger build is. And remember to always aim for headshots for bonus damage. When you come up against lots of little enemies or shield using enemies, you can transition into melee combat to cleave down the packs of enemies or break the enemy block bar with repeated attacks. This build always uses a one-handed weapon and a shield to benefit from parrying, which you should always do as often as you can when fighting in melee by blocking at the last moment as the enemy swings its attack. Make sure you equip your bow as your designated ranged weapon so that you can weave between melee and ranged combat really smoothly and quickly using the specific ranged weapon keybind. Make sure you bind this on something comfy, you'll use it a lot. Finally, make sure you abuse your double jump and line of sight to kite enemies around the natural terrain and structures, all while punishing with your ranged shots. Now let me explain how the Beastmaster skills work. The first two nodes you'll get stop beasts and Vukka attacking you, essentially just pacifying them. If you attack them first, they will retaliate though. The second two will make them also defend you whenever anything else within 50 meter range attacks you. This is completely passive and particularly strong later in the game as the Draconic Vultures don't bother you and will actually fly down and attack all these bandits up on the walls that shoot you. It's actually really strong. The final interaction, which is not explained, is that you also gain the ability to command a beast or Vukka to guard you. And then they just follow you around. This is a little limited and clunky, they occasionally get stuck or just disappear, and obviously they can't keep up when you start gliding around really quickly. I find this most helpful though, just to bring beasts with you into ruined towns and villages where you're expecting combat, so you can guarantee that a beast is within that 50 meter range, and then just let them defend you. For whatever reason, you can't command the vultures to follow you, which is lame. I suspect it's probably flying versus ground limitations in the back end. And one last thing to note is that the tooltip does specify shroud afflicted beasts won't protect you, but the shroud vultures in the endgame actually do, which is really nice. So again, you're getting a lot of value out of this. The biggest downfall of these skills is that they are inconsistent, as you can't rely on beasts always being near you when fighting, but you're plenty strong without them anyway. The quality of life of not always being harassed by every vulture you come across is actually pretty good too. In terms of weapons, I recommend bows with the 0.6 second attack speed rather than 1 second. It makes a big difference for quickly weaving shots in between dodges and movement. Don't stress too much over this throughout the game, you'll find plenty of bows, just keep upgrading it for the next best bow that you find. And for the endgame, I've put a few good options on screen. In terms of melee weapons, this build uses a one-handed weapon of your preference and a shield. The only thing that really matters is to use weapons that have as close to a single damage type as possible, because we only have enough skill points to boost a single type by 30%. For example, the bronze sword is nearly entirely cutting damage, so we would combo that with the cutting skills, benefiting from nearly 30% entirely. Again, I've put some endgame options on screen. For shields, just take the highest block stat you can find. This reduces how much stamina gets used to block. In terms of equipment, you want to take the archery boosting helmet and gloves relative for your level, as these are the two armor slots that contribute towards offensive output. The chests, legs and boots aren't too influential. I like to take the warrior and soldier themed sets for a source of health regen and better armor. The archer versions just give a little less health and more stamina, which we don't really need in this build, to be honest. Rings are harder to obtain, so just use whatever you come across. In general, health and stamina and regens of both of those are good. Mana is not really used in this build. Use whatever arrows you have access to and enough resources for, and don't stress too much over these. You can use the basic wooden arrows the entire game if you wanted to. Personally, I use mostly a combination of wooden arrows just for spamming, fossilized bone arrows for stronger enemies because these are easier to make than mining iron and refining it into ingots. I go to this spot here to farm those right below the Nomad Highlands Tower, as you have a huge fossil source right here next to a nest for twigs. I also make a few explosive arrows, but I save those only for the hardest enemies in the endgame. Now I know many people watching this aren't going to be at max skill points yet, so I'm going to walk you through the whole build in the rough order that I recommend taking your skills throughout the game. Put the very first 2 points into Constitution. Doubling your health pool at the start of the game is really valuable. Next, to gain the biggest boost to Archery as soon as possible, we'll build into the Ranger tree. You can also grab the base dex point in the Assassin tree while we're here. Marksman and Sharpshooter give a flat 30% range damage, followed by a further 20% on headshots. Multi-shot procs and the Ranger point gives a huge amount of passive benefit. Eagle Eye is optional. I don't use it because it doesn't add output value, but if it helps you aim for headshots, it will be worth it. Personal preference on that one. For your next 4 points, simply round out your base node stats for endurance and strength, and if you're desperate for double jump, you can grab this right now too, or you can get it later when we build the survival tree, that's up to you. At this point you'll be approaching the mid game, and you can decide between building the Beastmaster or Warrior tree next, based on your preference. If you feel you need some melee power and some health sooner, then go the Warrior tree, otherwise build straight into the core of this ranged Beastmaster build. To access the Beastmaster tree, you need to go through these 2 very underwhelming poison resistance nodes. These are terrible and weirdly niche. I don't recommend these at all. Instead, you can access the tree through the Relentless Flame node, which adds a nice 5 minutes bonus to the shroud time, which is actually really helpful. So in the Survivor tree, take this endurance point, which is actually dexterity, so we get some range damage, and then Wanderlust and good metabolism, which give pretty noticeable efficiency when running on roads, and potion strength. Now something to note about the Beastmaster tree is that it has 2 incorrect tooltips. These 2 endurance points are actually dexterity like the one before on the Survivor tree. And so this little area here has 4 dex nodes, a flat 20% range damage, which really helps to make the Beastmaster more viable. So go ahead and pick up the 4 dex nodes and the 4 Beastmaster nodes, which I discussed before. It's worth noting here that I never take any of these points that scale with flame level, because they only give 2 stats per 5 points invested, which is far worse than all the single point stat nodes, which are 1-to-1. In the Warrior tree, you'll need to pick between one of these 3 branches that boost a single type of melee damage each, as I mentioned before. So you want to identify which type your melee weapon uses and take that. It's inefficient and we don't have enough points to boost all 3 damage types. Then just take the rest of these nodes. They are all solid, crit chance, attack speed, and more stats. Now there's a little more ranged damage to be grabbed from the Assassin tree. Sniper gives a valuable 10% crit chance, stamina on headshot is useful, and a dex node. I don't take any more because Blessed Arrows gives mana, which is not really used for this, Bounty Bonanza is useless, and the Ricochet and Chain Reaction skills are too specifically dependent on exploding arrows. I think these are just too much skill points to invest, especially noting that exploding arrows are one of the last thing you unlock in the game. Now we are just rounding out the build with as many single point stats as we can get efficiently, and the Athlete tree is a good spot for this. Take Jump Attack, which is good to have anyway, a Strength node, Vigorous Deflection is fine for only 2 points, and opens up 3 more stats at the end of the tree which you'll want to grab as well. At this point you'll be in the end game, and food buffs are worth about 4 stats or more, so putting some points into Survivor for some dex, sweet regen, and a 4th food slot is very valuable. Now your last 10 points have a few options depending on your preference that can be taken whenever suits. If you're happy to farm exploding arrows, you'll get the most offensive value from Shell Shock. The stun from this is really powerful against some of the hardest enemies and actually gives a use to your mana. If you want to lean more into melee, you have a few options in the Barbarian tree. Heavy-handed is actually really good, and you can grab another 2 stats there as well. If you desperately want blink instead of your normal dodge, you can grab this for a 7-point investment through the healing tree. And finally, there are a few lone points that are quite valuable, so mix and match these based on your preference. Feast adds a really nice boost to health. Rebound boosts your base stamina regen significantly. Swift Shot Sustenance is also a source of stamina regen through orbs, which works well with good metabolism, which you already take anyway. Eagle Eye, if you took that earlier. Shiny Plates is a good amount of defense for only 2 spare points. Breach, if you like to smash into shields, is pretty good. Same idea with Merciless Attack. Or Eagle's Bane if you hate these damn endgame enemies like me. If you've got a single point remaining, finish with this last endurance node in the Survivor tree. Lastly, I'll talk about food buffs and consumables very quickly. In general, just use the Constitution, Dex, and Strength food buffs throughout the game appropriate to your level. Once you have a 4th food slot, use it for stamina regen from sweets, or regen from fruit or liquids. Best combinations at endgame are vegetable soup for Dex, sandwich for Strength, chicken soup for Constitution, and then either the fruit bowl for massive regen stats, or spiced tea for endurance, or grilled yucca, which is a sweet, combined with the sweet tooth talent for massive stamina regen. And that's it. If you like the build, please like or comment, and subscribe for more Enshrouded content. I intend on making a full suite of build videos for every type of playstyle. Thanks for listening, everyone. Cheers.